That's what you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Transportation Finance and Policy Committee. I'm Co-Chair John Koznick. Being just after 1 o'clock, we will call the meeting to order. There is a quorum. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of March 2nd. Chair Tabke, as you're looking at the minutes, would you make that motion for us?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Chair Tabke moves the minutes of March 2nd, 2026. All those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are adopted. We only have two bills on the agenda today. The previous bill that was posted for Representative Knudsen, I believe they've kind of worked that out, and so that was pulled from the agenda. And so the first bill on the agenda is House File 3553, Representative Backer. The motion, we're going to hear the bill. We're going to end up laying it over pending the fiscal note on this and a little bit of work. And then we have the autonomous vehicle bill that I'm authoring. And so members, very connected and bills, similar topics. So kind of exciting technology, but what we do have a number of amendments in that. So we're going to kind of try to go through as many of the amendments and then also have everybody that signed up to testify get their opportunity to share their support and concerns. And then hopefully there'll be time for member discussion afterwards as well. So we're a little short on Representative Backer's time as he's got a committee across the hall. So we will, I will move. Why don't you introduce your bill and then we're just going to lay it over.
Chair, would we not want to move it and then accept the DE amendment? So we can get the bill in the format that's applicable to everybody?
Perfect. I will move House File 3553 for Representative Backer. And then there's a DE amendment. I will move the DE amendment for Representative Backer. Then Representative Backer, please introduce your bill and amendment.
Yeah, thank you. House File 3553, along with the DE amendment, is a bill that was brought into me by my constituents on the western part of the state. Is huge with sugar beets, starting from where I live all the way up the Red River Valley. And these growers own a sugar beet processing plant in Wahpeton, which is right across the border of Breckenridge. And most of these trucks that move the sugar beets are done in the fall and the wintertime. And what's interesting is over the last 5 years, this company in North Dakota has used technology that allows the lead truck of a two truck the first truck controls the second truck, so they are able to travel together with one driver. Again, they've been doing this on the North Dakota side. I think us in Minnesota can also do the same, okay? House File 3553 would allow this company to start with a pilot. Understand, we want to test here in Minnesota with the exact same technology. This would be a pilot project that will run on 4 specific routes in the district that I represent in mostly Wilkin County. The bill requires that a human person be present in each truck during the pilot project, so there should be none safety concerns. With me today is Dr. Mike Metzger.
Yep.
All right. The Executive Vice President of Mindac Farmers Co-op, who will share you more information, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Backer, Chair Backer. We moved the DE1 amendment. He explained it. All those in favor of the DE1 amendment so the author can get the bill in the desired status, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The DE1 amendment is adopted. Okay, there's the bill. Thank you for the introduction. Mr. Metzger, welcome to the committee. It's good to see you. I had the opportunity to meet you and I think it was the Agri Summit last fall in the interim. I had a very interesting conversation. Welcome to the committee. For the public record and recording, can you identify yourself and then proceed with your testimony, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So identification, Dr. Mike Metzger. I am the Executive Vice President of Mindak Farmers Cooperative in Wapaton, North Dakota. Mindak Farmers Cooperative is a grower-owned sugar beet processing facility located at the southern end of the Red River Valley. We have proudly been in business since 1974 and continue to be one of the industry's most advanced and proficient sugar production facilities today. As Executive Vice President of Agriculture and Research, my primary area of responsibility is focused upon the research and production aspects of the agricultural arena. I am responsible for both the current production techniques and future technologies encompassing the growing, harvesting, and delivering of sugar beets from processing from 500 shareholders raising sugar beets on 100,000 plus acres. Okay, you guys maybe didn't know, but Minnesota is the #1 sugar beet production state in the union. Just shy of 40% of the beets that are raised across the United States are grown right here in Minnesota. Specifically zooming in a little bit, when you take a look, you can see they're kind of limited to the Red River Valley. They're run on either side of the Red River up and down, and then a bit centered around Renville County. In this area, we have 3 different grower-owned sugar beet cooperatives that operate. American Crystal, Mindak, and Southern Minnesota Beet Sugar Co-op. Those are the bookends. Mindak is located right in the middle. Now, while we are in headquartered in North Dakota, 70% of the beets that we raise are grown on the Minnesota side of the river. Every year, Mindak utilizes a fleet of tractor-trailer units to transport over 2 million tons of sugar beets from our outside receiving stations into the factory for processing. During our processing campaign, our fleet of 14 trucks runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Collectively, our fleet of 14 trucks puts on over 2.5 million miles during a single hauling campaign, and that's from August to April of the following year. To put this into perspective, this is collective distances enough to circumnavigate the earth over 1,000 times in a 7-month period using 14 trucks. I'm also happy to report that our fleet has not had a single moving violation of any sort within the past 7 seasons. This speaks volumes about the safety culture and professionalism of the drivers we have employed at Mindak. Commercial truck drivers are getting very, and let me stress very, hard to come by, not only on a national level, but even more so locally. I truly believe that the new rules and regulations to acquire a CDL or commercial driver's license will only exacerbate this already troubling issue, especially in our rural areas. In order to continue to operate, we as a business need to be able to do more with less. Leader-follower platoon technology has proven to be both effective and safe in other geographies and is the reason behind our cooperative selecting this technology for our potential pilot project. The hope going forward is that we can easily adjust or increase our haul capacity by simply adding automated trucks to each of our human-operated trucks. And if you take a look at the screens there, for those that aren't familiar, those big brown things, that one's about 180,000 tons of sugar beets, the one towards the bottom of the screen. We stack these things in large piles, and God bless Mother Nature, she keeps it cold in the winter, and that gives us kind of Mother Nature's refrigerator, if you think of it that way. These piles are not only at our process facility, we have 7 different satellite stations located kind of like little moons that orbit our factory. And here's a picture of one by Foxhome, Minnesota. So these are the ones that we're talking about bringing in an autonomous fashion. And on the other side there, you can see the 4 locations that are in the bill that we're visiting about. So in May of 2021, Mindak announced its partnership with Kratos Defense and Security Solutions to deploy a set of trucks that can operate in a leader-follower platoon. It is of note that our driverless truck leader-follower platooning is different from autonomous trucks independently operating themselves. The conception of this is that it's a Roomba just out running around the countryside. This is as far from the truth as that could be. The leader-follower platooning includes 1 human-driven truck followed by 1 driverless truck. In this scenario, we maintain a human decision maker who is always within 300 feet or less of the driverless vehicle. This enables the human driver to make all of the quote-unquote hard decisions for the driverless vehicle as it travels along the route. For example, if there's a work zone on the route, a stalled car, an emergency vehicle, etc., we rely on the human leader vehicle to make the decisions versus full reliance on machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is a huge safety and reliability advantage that the leader-follower platooning has versus independently operating driverless trucks. Just to put into context, guys, this proposed pilot program that you have in the bill in front of you, the longest route that we're going to have is just under 32 miles. into the North Dakota border, where we're able to utilize this technology. And the shortest one is the one here, the Yegi Station, which is just 11 miles. Our 14 trucks, once they target that station, will go to that site 24 times in a 24-hour period, each individual truck. It's short, repetitive, frankly boring routes. And here you can see the others that we're talking about. Not a lot of turns, not a lot of winds. It's pretty well straightforward. So when MnDOT started this leader-follower pilot project in the North Dakota side of the river, safety was our primary concern, and nothing would be different here in Minnesota. With this in mind, MnDOT developed a deployment strategy to introduce this technology to the Red River Valley roadways in a crawl, walk, run, as we vetted this technology within our operating environment in the safest possible way. For example, we pre-ran all of our sugar beet hauling routes in manual mode with the system in idle. This enabled us to evaluate all routes for any kind of abnormalities, as well as environmentally stress testing the sensors and navigation equipment in our harsh environment. From there, we systematically started implementing more and more of the automated system until we got to where we are operating the system in a full driverless leader following platoon fashion. Again, with a trained CDL safety rider on board the driverless vehicle that could take control of the wheel at any time. And safety rider, sometime when you think rider, you think passenger seat. That this rider is in the driver's seat behind the wheel. It's just the truck is operating itself autonomously. Here's what some of the sensors and some of that 360-degree safety bubble looks like. But this is the current protocol that we're utilizing today and is the basis of the platooning plan approved by the North Dakota Highway Department, the North Dakota Department of Transportation, and the North Dakota Highway Patrol. Again, we are hoping for the same or similar on these 4 specified routes east of the Red River. This continues to improve and enhance the system. We need to have it on the road, running routes, functioning as needed support on our sugar beet rehaul operations. When the system is running, we are obtaining valuable data regarding the system, the environment, the operators, and interaction with other vehicles on the road. This kind of data will enable us to continue to improve the performance and ensure the highest levels of safety as we move forward with our crawl, walk, run process. To date, on the North Dakota side of the river, without leaving Richland County, we have logged over 100,000 miles autonomously on these trucks with the leader-follower platoon. To put that into perspective, guys and gals, this is the equivalent of driving the 494, 694 Metro Loop over 1,340 times, except we've done this on 2-lane roads without a single moving violation, accident, or system failure of any sort. As we mentioned earlier, we would be operating the remote follower vehicle with the trained CDL safety rider on board as we would progress through the crawl, walk, run mentality of this pilot program in Minnesota. Using North Dakota as a template of sorts, I envision this future milestone as a close collaboration working with policy regulators, roadway authorities. Keeping everyone on the same page will help move projects like this forward with the project visibly and a lot of collaboration. This is exactly what we have done since our initial deployment, hauling sugar beets from our receiving stations to the factory for processing. It's like a 3-legged stool with one leg as government entities, one is academia, and the other is the agricultural industry to ensure a solid base for implementation and proliferation of this benefit technology. So now kind of the ask and the reason that we're here. This technology is proven. I've said we've got over 100,000 miles logged without a moving violation, accident, or system failure. The AI system has been learning. We've had the system in idle, not in autonomous modes, for 2 years. It has well over 2 million miles logged in Minnesota learning how fast the truck accelerates, how fast it decelerates, what the angles of the turns are, where the turns are. It's been doing this constantly. We would have a safety rider behind it. I think we kind of covered that. And then what we do with the trucks, and the reason we chose this technology is that they're manned during inclement weather. We chose this technology because when it gets foggy, when it gets icy, when it gets a good thunderstorm coming in, the last thing we want is our name on the front of the Star Tribune that autonomous truck was in an accident. We're able to flip a switch like an RTK in a tractor and man the truck and not have to put park critical infrastructure that feeds our factory. This pilot program would be conducted in Wilkin County exclusively. We have other receiving stations in Grant County. That has been stricken. We're just going to focus on the one. Wilkin County in its entirety has 6,500 people living there. 3,000 of them live within the city of Breckenridge, so it's an incredibly rural area. I drive from Wilkin County east to west every day. It's 28 miles to my office. I meet the same 3 cars every morning on that 28-mile journey. We know if one's running late or not by where we meet each other on the road. This is kind of the area we're talking about. And simply what we're asking is the ability to turn on the trucks in a manner that's safe to the public. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I don't want to use up any more time than needed. I do have a video here of the trucks operating in North Dakota, if that would help.
It would help, but we're going to hold off on that.
Yes,
We
sir.
want to get through the couple other testifiers. If you could email us the video.
Yes, sir.
We'll share that with the committee. I don't know if that was put on the committee webpage. We have signed up to testify as Amber Backus with United Strategies for the Regional Railroad Association. We'll go to her, and then we'll go to Mr. Clavin, and then any public testimony, but
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
thank you. Welcome, Ms. Backus. You know the drill. Identify yourself and share your testimony, please.
Excuse me. All right, good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Amber Backus, and I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota Regional Railroads Association, which includes 4 Class 1 railroads and 14 regional and short line railroads operating in Minnesota. Railroads are the safest and most efficient way to move freight over land, and they also help preserve Minnesota's road system by keeping heavy freight off public highways. I do want to acknowledge that agriculture, including the sugar beet industry, is an incredibly important customer of Minnesota's railroads, which makes it a bit awkward to be testifying against this bill. We also recognize that rail is not always a viable option for moving products directly from the field to processing facilities, and we appreciate that the author is trying to craft a targeted solution. However, we have seen in past truck size and weight debates that limited exemptions and pilot programs can quickly grow, ultimately shifting freight from rail to trucks. And when the legislature sets policies that favor one transportation mode over another, it changes the balance of Minnesota's freight system. But our most immediate concern with House File 3553 is safety. Now, I'm not sure if this still applies with the changes in the delete all, so I will, maybe Mr. Clevin will respond when I'm done. But I do understand from talking to my members that the routes may cross several active railroad crossings, including tracks operated by BNSF, CPKC, and the Red River Valley and Western Railroads. And in conversations with Representative Backer, he noted that visibility along much of this route extends for miles, and the platoons will see trains well in advance of coming upon them. And in open rural areas, that may be true, but that visibility changes dramatically when these platooning trucks enter Breckenridge, Minnesota. And I can't tell if the routes match the maps shown, but we had identified a crossing where Highway 75 meets Minnesota Avenue, and before reaching that intersection, vehicles must cross 3 active railroad tracks, which together can see up to 17 trains per day. And just 71 feet beyond the northernmost track, vehicles encounter a stop sign at Minnesota Avenue. Traffic frequently backs up at this intersection, and vehicles traveling northbound on Highway 75 can become queued between the tracks. If a platoon of trucks enters that area and the trailing vehicle fails to stop in time, there's the possibility that 2 fully loaded semi-trailers could be occupying the crossing simultaneously. And that is precisely the type of scenario that grade crossing safety policies are designed to prevent. We would also note that Minnesota's platooning law has been on the books since 2019, and since its adoption, no proposals have been approved for 3 truck platoons, and current law appropriately limits routes to divided trunk highways with full or partially controlled access. So before allowing 3 truck platoons to operate through communities and across active railroad crossings, we believe the state should first gather real-world performance data on 3 truck platoons from more controlled highway environments. We recognize that new technologies are transforming every transportation sector, including the railroads, and they offer opportunities for significant efficiencies, but we don't want Minnesota to turn its back on innovation. We also need to ensure that this does not outpace safety, and I appreciate the time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Backus. Mr. Cleven.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Bruce Clavin, I represent Mindac Farmers Cooperative. I hadn't planned to start with rebuttal testimony, but I'll make 2 points. Ms. Backus and I have gone back and forth over the years on this. This is not a size and weight bill. Not a size and weight bill. It's about a driver bill. Also on the grade crossings, I'm a farm kid. I've been driving semis myself for 30 years or more. I wouldn't enter a railroad track if there was a train coming. And if I had a trailing car or a truck behind me, I still wouldn't enter the when it entered the grade crossing. So I'm not sure about those points. I'll walk you about through the DE very quickly, Mr. Chair. I met with Mr. Dean on Monday morning from MnDOT, took all their suggestions into the DE. I want to thank Mr. Burris for putting this together quickly yesterday. The DE follows the current platoon law in 169.881 for most of the first page, and the second, I want to direct your attention to 2.12. That is the driver. There's a driver in each of these trucks for the next 4 years. All the company's asking to do is flip on the switch. That's all they're doing. You'll see the routes starting at 2.23 on over to 3.24. Those are supposed to represent the blue lines that you saw on the screen. That's it. And last, I would conclude by just mentioning to the members here with the way this went together quickly. I've been here long enough. I didn't get to co-chair Tabby in time. I stake out around the House chamber on Monday trying to catch you. And I didn't get to many of you members, including co-chair Tabby. And I want to note for the record that I expected this to be laid over, which would give me time to talk to more members before it ever does leave the committee. So I just want to make that note for the record for the co-chair. That's all.
Thank you, appreciate those comments, and we are laying it over, and the testimony on the next bill will probably take a lot more time. Chair Tapke, do you have any comments, or otherwise we'll just move to lay it over?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just want to say that this is very tied to our next conversation and making sure that we have
Connected.
These. Yes, it is. And thank you very much, and we'll continue to work on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chair Backer, do you have any closing comments as we lay the bill over?
This just makes sense. If North Dakotans can do it, Minnesotans can too.
We can do it better.
Yes, we will do it better. That's correct. I would agree with you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you for the work on this. I think it's something worth continuing to explore, and I appreciate the testifiers' willingness to continue to work together. And I hope this is a bill that we can bring up in a future hearing. So with that, I will move that House File 3553 be laid over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Thank you. The next bill, we will introduce the bill. Representative Olson will chair the committee. We'll introduce the bill and go through the testifiers. Keep your comments really to about 2 minutes, maybe 3, especially if the comments have already been made. That'll help us get everybody on the record and hear the concerns, and then we'll move to members' amendments. And then hopefully there's time for some discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. If you all are looking at the agenda here, we've got 17 amendments and 17 testifiers. If that's 2 minutes a person, that is 68 minutes, and we're currently leaving very little for discussion. So my ask is that we're assuming that every one of the members of this committee have already looked at these amendments, and they have predetermined their decisions, and they have taken time outside of this committee to ask the questions that are necessary if they do have those. So we're gonna stay really tight to the point. Mr. Chair, would you like to move your bill and give it a quick introduction?
Thank you, Chair Olson. And if you want to announce who the role of the testifiers are, there may be Sean Haig from the Minnesota State Transportation Center of Excellence. I don't know that he made it onto the agenda. He did call yesterday.
He's on the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so he'd probably be, come after the commissioner, please. And then I'll take a liberty from this side as committee co-chair. I think we have some students here from Menlo Park Academy in Minneapolis. Okay, they don't get welcome because I don't think they're here, but they were supposed to be here. No problem. If they were here, we'd welcome them. Members, it doesn't take too much watching the news to understand that there is exciting emerging technology in transportation that I think is going to be transformative to all sorts of transit modes and systems. And so I'm happy to introduce, and this is a work in progress, so I'm glad that we have different amendments to talk about members' concerns and ideas. And so we're going to start the process today. And House File 5313, it is a bipartisan legislation that establishes a clear and predictable framework for autonomous vehicles operating in Minnesota. Minnesota has the opportunity to join many other states that are already preparing for the next generation of transportation technology while ensuring that safety remains a top priority. The primary motivation behind the legislation is public safety. Nationwide, more than 40,000 people lose their lives each year in traffic crashes. Minnesota experienced a particularly difficult year in 2024 when 475 Minnesotans were killed in traffic crashes. However, in 2025 showed an improvement, and we still lost 370 lives in 2025. Advances in level 4 and 5 autonomous vehicle technology have the potential to significantly reduce crashes caused by impaired, distracted, or drowsy driving. Autonomous vehicles in this bill establish a regulatory framework that allows innovation to move forward while maintaining strong safety precautions and protections. A key provision of the bill is the requirement for first responders' interactive plan. This ensures that law enforcement and emergency responders have clear protocols and support when interacting with autonomous vehicles. The legislation also requires vehicles to maintain what is known as minimal risk condition, meaning that if a system failure occurs, the vehicle must automatically bring itself to a safe stop. This bill also establishes a statewide consistency so that companies operating autonomous vehicles, any company, not any one particular company, that they do not face a patchwork of local regulations and fees that could discourage investment and deployment in Minnesota. So beyond safety, there are potential economic benefits as well. A 2024 Chamber of Progress report predicts that autonomous vehicle industry could create between 114,000 and 455,000 jobs nationally over the next 15 years. These jobs include manufacturing, engineering, distribution, maintenance, and technical services, many of which pay above the national median wage. Autonomous vehicle technology may also expand mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities by providing more reliable and safe transportation options than they currently have. Finally, the bill clarifies liability by placing responsibility for traffic violations on the authorized holder when a vehicle is operating without a driver present. So we're introducing this bill to ensure that Minnesota is prepared for the emerging transportation technology and not left behind the rest of the country, while also maintaining strong safety standards and regulatory clarity. There are a couple authors' amendments. As I said, this is a work in progress. Mr. Chair, we should, I would request that we move those first.
Perfect, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that this bill is going to be moved to the Commerce Committee, is that correct?
I would make that motion to move House File 5313 to the Commerce Committee, yes.
All right, so Bill 3513 has been moved to the Commerce Committee. We'll begin with the author's amendment, First Amendment. A12, it's from my understanding, the technical corrections. Mr. Chair, would you like to move that amendment?
I would move the A12 amendment. From the original revision, there was just kind of some sequential things. And so we'll move the A12 amendment.
Any discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? The motion prevails, the amendment's adopted. Moving on to the A15 amendment, my understanding is that this is the one where it requires MnDOT to use existing resources. Mr. Chair, would you like to move that amendment?
I will move the A15 amendment, and there was a discussion in working on the bill. There would be some generally insignificant costs incurred by the Department of Public Safety and MnDOT. We will continue to work on the fiscal note as well as I believe it's just received today. So this amendment has those departments working on the bill, and they believe that they can incur the cost within the department. That's what the A15 amendment does.
Discussion on the amendment, Representative Kraft, really quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Koznick. So I like giving a wide lane to folks for an author's amendment to put in the form you want it. But this one seems like there's no fiscal note, and you're saying that that MnDOT has to take care of all the costs. It seems like more than a technical getting it in the form you want it.
Mr. Chair, response?
Working with MnDOT and the Department of Public Safety, I've contacted them both about this amendment, so it's not a surprise. But the incidental cost of MnDOT already has a connected autonomous vehicle department. The commissioner will testify a little bit later. The Department of Public Safety has some interactions with the incident response on that. So they've been notified that pretty insignificant, but we'll continue to revise and work on that as well. So again, I would renew the motion for the A15 amendment.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Moving on to the next amendment, the author's amendment, the A14, or having to do with the airport, Mr. Chair. Two-year amendment.
Thank you. The A14 amendment, and actually deals with the MAC, and this is brought to us from the Minneapolis St. Paul Airport. There was language regarding airports. This just adds a little bit more clarifying language that they were hoping to have a better framework, and we would accept their suggestions, and so I move the A14 amendment.
Any discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. All right, Mr. Chair, would you like to go to member amendments or to testifiers now?
I think it'd be best to have the testifiers share their support and concern and ideas, and we can start on there.
That sounds great, Mr. Chair.
Give them some
So
heads up so that they can.
I will give
get ready
you,
and
I'm going to read them
rotate the
out,
chair.
first, second, third. The first one up is the Commissioner of MnDOT, Nancy Dottenberger. We've got Thomas Kaiser next after her, and then Eric Hansen will be third. Please adjust your positions in this room accordingly for maximum speed and movement. Commissioner, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nancy Daubenberger, and I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And I am joined today by my colleague, Mr. Thomas Johnson Kaiser. He is not planning to testify, but he is here to help answer questions that you might have for us. And Thomas is with our MnDOT's Connected and Automated Vehicle Policy and Planning Manager role. So first, MnDOT appreciates the Representative Koznick's bill and the discussion around automated vehicles. And we very much appreciate Representative Koznick and Representative Cagle's active participation as ex officio members of the Governor's Council on Connected and Automated Vehicles. MnDOT's always looking for ways to advance technology and to enhance our transportation system by making things safer, increasing transportation options for the people of Minnesota, especially for those who are unable to drive themselves, and providing economic development opportunities. Tara Olds, the MnDOT director of our Office of Connected and Automated Vehicles, or CAV office, shared at your February 18th hearing that MnDOT worked in partnership with our Governor's Council on Connected and Automated Vehicles to help Minnesota plan and prepare for automated vehicles over the last year. MnDOT and the Council undertook a process to prepare for future legislative discussions on this topic. Our work included looking at AV laws around the country and surveying over 20 states, identifying the top and common themes included in legislation and discussion, identifying gaps in our own state laws and identifying needs within those laws, engaging with over 70 stakeholders to understand differing goals and perspectives, and developing council recommendations on how Minnesota should develop AV policy to address our state's needs and opportunities. And this not only includes the Governor's the Governor's Council recommended approach, but also acknowledges and documents differing approaches and differing perspectives of CAV members, CAV Council members. These recommendations can be found on MnDOT's CAV website. We believe that fully automated vehicles will be a part of Minnesota's very near transportation future, and clear rules and regulations governing the operation of automated vehicles are needed. We appreciate the spirit of Representative Kegel's bill. Based on the council recommendations, there are a few areas we feel need further discussion, including requiring any automated vehicle operator to apply for and receive a permit from MnDOT prior to operating, which is renewed annually. In the permitting process, automated vehicle operators should be required to define their operational design domain. Specifying a detailed enforcement plan and process that empowers the state to suspend, revoke, or cancel the permit of any automated vehicle operator that endangers the public or fails to comply with the requirements of an automated vehicle permit. And clarifying the roles that remote assistance and teleoperations play in automated vehicle operations, and requiring any fully automated vehicle to be registered as an automated vehicle with the Department of Public Safety. We welcome the opportunity to continue the discussion on automated vehicle policy with the bill authors and with the Department of Public Safety as well. We believe policy can be developed to ensure safety on our roadways while also helping Minnesota realize the potential benefits of automated vehicles. And thank you for allowing me to testify. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, we have Eric Hansen, and then after Eric, we've got Adam Lane, and then Cole Davies.
And Mr. Chair, I would note, thank you, Commissioner, for your comments and the department for working on this important technology. They did reach out to us, not in time to incorporate some of those suggestions, so we weren't able to put that together, but I have offered to continue to meet with them as early as this Friday.
Yeah, so if we can, as our testifiers are going, get into a position where you can take that next seat when you're called upon to go. Mr. Hansen, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Eric Hansen. I'm the CEO of Southwest Transit in Eden Prairie. We're one of the replacement service providers, the so-called opt-outs in the suburbs of the Twin Cities. There's really three things I want to talk about very briefly. One is how our system works, because we do currently operate an autonomous vehicle system in Eden Prairie and have for the last 11 months. A little bit about kind of what this means in terms of our safety, as well as why this bill is important. So we started operating our system under a contract with May Mobility as a company out of Michigan. They also operate another system in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and have been doing that for about 4 years. And we started operating on April 15th of last year. So almost a year into this, and we've transported 27,000 people and gone about 112,000 total miles with this system. It's 7 square miles around what is going to be the terminus for the Green Line at Southwest Station. That is a mobility hub that includes bus service and other microtransit, as well as the train will in about another year. And ultimately, from our perspective, we think it's going pretty well. A couple of reasons why we think that. First of all, we do a thumbs up, thumbs down survey in the app that we use that people use to hail the ride, because it's a microtransit service, and so it's on demand. And the average person waits about 14 minutes to get that ride, which is pretty fast when you consider that it's a shared ride service in a transit environment. 96% of the people that give us feedback on that app are giving us a thumbs up and telling us they like the service. We were very concerned when we started the service, because we had an existing microtransit service as it was anyway. What is this going to look like from a safety standpoint? Are people going to like it? Or are they going to say, oh, we don't know what this technology is, we're not so sure. But it's kind of amazing that we actually have significantly more ridership, about 140% compared to a year ago in this zone when we implemented this new service compared to the microtransit service that it replaced. So very, very popular service. The second thing we were concerned about was safety. It's the same thing that people have already been talking about in the first place.
Mr. Hansen, if you're going to have 3 things, you need to hurry up.
Sorry. I will say this real quickly. We've had no accidents. We operate about 40 to 60% in autonomy at this point. And the reason why we do that is because with an operator in the vehicle, is because it is important for us to test the system and know exactly what it means before you go completely driver out. And that's why it's important to have a bill like this at the end of the day. because you want to make sure that there's consistent regulations. You want to make sure that you have legitimate, people who really know what they're doing, because this is an emerging technology. You don't want to, you don't want to put people's lives at risk with something like this. And so we want to be very careful about what we do. And so it's a process. And we're very happy that we're part of this process, because this is something that can be a huge benefit, for the transit community. Our service is also completely accessible. Every single one of these vehicles has a wheelchair lift in it as well, and so we transport a number of people who have those needs. It's gone pretty well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hanson.
Thank you.
Next, we got Adam Lane. After him is Cole Davies, then Alex Smith. Thank you so much, Mr. Lane, for being in your position right now, ready to go. Could you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Yes, hi there. Adam Lane. I'm a state and local public policy manager with Waymo. Good afternoon, Chair Koznick, Chair Tapke, and honorable members of the committee. My name is Adam Lane. As I mentioned, I'm the state and local public policy manager for Waymo. I appreciate you letting us testify today in support of HF 3513. I want to begin by extending our gratitude to Chair Koznick for serving as the chief author of this legislation, and for the 7 other members of this committee who have signed on as co-sponsors. The legislation is a vital step towards getting autonomous vehicles and their proven safety, accessibility, and economic benefits to Minnesota. By passing House File 3513, Minnesota will join more than half the country in enacting a clear framework for commercial deployment of autonomous vehicles. This creates regulatory certainty for companies like Waymo and others to invest in your communities, improve road safety, and offer new mobility options for Minnesotans. We are an autonomous driving technology company with a mission to be the world's most trusted driver. Today, we operate a fully autonomous ride-hailing service in over 10 metropolitan areas across the United States, and we complete over 400,000 paid trips every single week. We're also expanding our service to new cities, including Denver, Detroit, Las Vegas, San Antonio, San Diego, and we also have international operations beginning in London and Tokyo. The Waymo Driver, our autonomous driving system, completes over 4 million miles on a weekly basis. That is 6 human lifetimes every 7 days. And just 2 weeks ago, we reached a new milestone where we've driven over 200 miles fully autonomously. After 127 million miles, we compared our driving to human-driven equivalents and found that we are experiencing 90% fewer serious injury-causing crashes when compared to human drivers. These statistics are highly encouraging and remind us of the important contributions this technology can have to safety. We're incredibly proud of that safety record we've achieved, and the fact that as we speak today, thousands of Americans, many of whom cannot drive their own vehicle, will use our service in their daily lives. We believe that House File 3513 creates a strong framework for AV deployment that balances regulation and innovation. We're extremely grateful for the work that MnDOT and the CAV Council have already completed on this to lay the foundation for the legislation. We look forward to being part of the solution to reduce traffic injuries and fatalities in Minnesota. Thank you, and I respectfully request your support on HF 3513.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lane. Next, we have Cole Davies, then Alex Smith, then Ken Rogers. Mr. Davies, would you please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony?
Hello, my name is Cole Davies. I'm 23 years old, graduated from St. John's University last spring, and I've been on the board of directors for the Epilepsy Foundation of Minnesota since the beginning of 2023. At my core, I'm someone who has always sought independence and wanted to help others. Examples from my preteen years include when I was 11 and started pushing so hard to learn how to drive, and at the same age when I started caring for my newborn brother. I was so involved, he called me mama once he learned to speak. When I turned 15, I had my first of hundreds of seizures. My seizures could be described as particularly violent, and that type of thing can be pretty detrimental to someone's independence and their ability to care for others. Driving a car or carrying a baby are just not options anymore. Not being able to legally drive means a lot in my life. It means that in the chaotic job search after college, I repeatedly had to make the choice between missing an interview or spending a third of my money on transportation to and from an interview for a job I'm not likely to get. Not driving is the main thing that makes it so difficult for me to get the medications that keep me alive, and not driving is a major factor what makes it so difficult for me to get to Mayo, the only place capable of handling my care. It's a 158-mile journey from St. Joseph to Rochester, and I just can't bike that. I've been beyond fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people in my life, and I have even had access to strangers who want to do amazing things for me. That's not even bringing up my wife yet, who, no offense to everyone else who has ever lived, but there's no way someone else is a better spouse. These people in my life are how I've been able to get to job interviews, obtain medications, and make it to important appointments. Even with the people around me, it is still very difficult to get from one place to another. Plus, everybody here needs to understand that not everyone has access to the type of support that I have had. From what I have seen among people like me, my situation is very rare. My not being able to drive is an issue every single day, not just in the cases of getting to an interview, picking up a medication, or going to the doctor. In fact, it was already an issue today. I had to go through several options before I found a maybe, and even then, I didn't know I'd actually be able to get here until an hour before I had to leave. Not being able to legally drive is what causes my drive to work, which is 15 minutes away, to take an hour and a half of working every day, because it takes me an hour in the car, or half an hour in the car to get there, and then my wife spends an hour going there, going back, going there, and going back. Not driving keeps me from heading to the store and coming back 10 minutes later because something was forgotten. Not driving means my wife has to run every errand. Not being able to drive means I will never be able to go out on a diaper run, never be able to make that quick trip to the grocery store and pick up that thing, and never be able to tell my wife, you stay here, I'll pick up the kids from X, Y, or Z. A reliable, easily accessible mode of transportation capable of taking me exactly to where I need to be would solve all these issues, improving my life and the ones around me. I've talked a lot about myself, but I'm not the only one with these issues. Based on some numbers from our state and the federal government, there are between 100,000 and 200,000 Minnesotans who are not permitted to drive due to their disability. A common issue for people who have impactful disabilities like mine is feeling like they're a burden and that people they spend their time with would be better off without them. Their conclusion is obviously incorrect, but there is some logic that leads them there as they watch others put a lot of effort into caring for them and find themselves unable to give to others in a direct way. This thought process frequently leads to depression, leading to more quickly degrading health, causing the negative feelings to grow and continuing a dangerous spiral. Many things, of course, can be tried to help with this. For many, this bill and the technology that follows it will do a lot of damage to the logic that even leads to these thoughts. Please keep pushing this bill forward and get it passed. Help me be a better friend, husband, and eventually father. Just based on who she is, I feel my wife will always be doing great things for me. With access to autonomous vehicles, I could become much more capable of caring for her. Don't let our state's legal system be what keeps me, a man who has never broken a law in his life, from going on a diaper run at 3 a.m. Access to autonomous vehicles would not just make the lives of people with disabilities much better, it would make the lives of those who care for them easier. It would let people like me do a lot more for the people they are close to, and through access to care, giving back both independence and the ability to help, and the simple fact that the right computer is a much better driver than the average person, you can save a lot of lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davies. Next, we have Alex Smith, then we have Ken Rogers, then we have Sean Haig. Please keep your testimonies rapid. I didn't want to cut into that last one, but it went a little bit long. Thank you so much. State your name for the record and continue with your testimony.
My name is Alex. I have one story. It'll be 2 minutes or less, and I'll start now. A typical 911 dispatcher takes about 100 emergency calls a shift. Over my career, that meant tens of thousands of calls for me. And just before I retired, I was the top call taker for the Minnesota State Patrol as a 911 dispatcher. When people call 911, as you imagine, they're often in hysterics, but sometimes it's the calmest callers who scare you the most. So when I answered 911 State Patrol and the caller had a steady, controlled, but I could feel his adrenaline, the rush of adrenaline right under that surface. When he said that there'd been a crash and that it was bad, I believed him. I could feel the adrenaline and the fear that he was holding back. This was a rural crash, a rollover involving a young kid, a young driver. That caller and I spent like what felt like forever trying to get access to the driver, to see if he was breathing, to see if we could do CPR, to do something or anything to help him. For me, it would be another fatal crash, and it was a preventable one. I retired from Minnesota State Patrol in February 2026. The plan was to take a vacation to Arizona So at 5 a.m., I took a traditional ride share to the Minneapolis airport. On the way there, that Uber or Lyft driver kept jerking their wheel, overcorrecting. I thought maybe he was tired, maybe he's falling asleep. Then I saw the glow on his face, a phone in his right hand. As we passed a police officer in St. Paul on a traffic stop, that Uber driver or Lyft driver nearly sideswiped the police car. For me, it was a disturbing ride. I made it to my flight safely, but suddenly my mind was back in the 911 center, remembering the trauma of hearing a trooper airing up on her radio. She had just been struck by a vehicle. Metro, I've just been hit, start medics. You see, those 10,000 911 calls that I took, some of them never leave me. And that Uber or Lyft driver on his phone brought me back. That driver was one mistake away from ruining his life or someone else's. I knew that intimately, but I don't think he did. I was supposed to be retired and on vacation, but my mind was replaying trauma in the past. We landed in Phoenix, and I took a Waymo from the airport to a friend's house. Early in the ride, I thought something was actually wrong with the Waymo. It seemingly made a lane change for no reason. And I was curious. I looked ahead. It was moving over for a Phoenix police officer who had pulled someone over on the shoulder. By the end of the ride, I couldn't believe the contrast. Not only did it feel like I took a time warp to the future, but it was a safer future. Safer for young kid drivers, safer for pedestrians, safer for officers working on the side of the road. When I had that ride share to the airport originally, I was stuck in my head, stuck in the past, reliving trauma. But after the Waymo ride, I thought there was hope, and I got to actually enjoy my first vacation of retirement. I hope you'll support this bill. Do it for safety, do it for a better future, do it to protect kids and teens.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate the conversation. Next up, we have Ken Rogers, then Sean Haig, and then Dan Dwight. Mr. Rogers, would you please state your name for the record? No, you can state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Ken Rogers. I am here on my own behalf, although I do have quite an array of credentials behind me. I am a disability advocate, have been for the last 30 years. I've been blind for 30 years. I was not born blind. I was an able-bodied person for half my life, and half my life now I've been completely blind, no light perception, totally and profoundly blind. Independence means everything to me. To be independent has a completely different meaning for me than it may have for you. I have learned to be as independent as possible. I rely on a lot of services. I can't jump in my own car to go somewhere. I must rely on public transportation or someone to take me. One thing I want to share with you that I'm not sure that you're all aware of, but we've had the ability to use network transportation services in the Twin Cities for several years now. One might think that's great, and it's a great opportunity to continue independence for people that are like me, that can't drive themselves. I have been a guide dog user for the last 25 plus years. I retired my last 4th guide dog in January of last year. At this point, I don't have another guide dog. I'm using my cane for the time being, but using a guide dog is in my blood. I cannot tell you how many times I have called for an Uber or Lyft or a taxi cab, and only to be met with a cab driver or Uber Lyft driver that pulls up, sees my dog, and takes off, denies me a ride that I am legally entitled to. I have little recourse but to call the company and complain, and those complaints often go unanswered. There have been many lawsuits against network transportation companies because of their inability or their ability to deny rides unfairly to people like me. This happens all the time. I also am the president of a blind organization in Minnesota that has a national presence. I got a call yesterday from a member of mine who just had a denial of an Uber ride because they have a guide dog. and the driver refused letting that dog get in his car. That is illegal. I know that, our members know that, but it happens. When I was in Phoenix recently, getting into a Waymo, and they're everywhere in Phoenix. It's amazing to learn that at a stop sign, there's 3 Waymos in line with each other waiting to cross the street. I experienced what one of the earlier speakers said, the smoothest ride ever. There's no jerkiness, there's no turning weird, there's no frustration from the driver when they encounter someone who has cut them off or they encounter a barrier of some sort. They just calmly go around it and make their way to their destination. I urge you to consider this as an independent bill for people like me that cannot drive, that really need a reliable service that can't be denied for whatever reason. They take too long to get in the vehicle, or they have a dog and the person doesn't want the dog in the cab.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Rogers. I appreciate you being here. Just a real quick update, everyone. We've got 11 people signed up to testify at 2 minutes, which we've been going a little bit over. We have 22 minutes of testimony. We have 14 amendments at 2 minutes. That's 28 minutes. We have 50 minutes worth of work to do here just to pass this on to the next committee, and we currently have 50 minutes. We need to move, all right? So I'm going to hold you to 2 minutes now. Mr. Haig, state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sean Haig with Minnesota State Transportation Center of Excellence Chair. Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Our center works with over 70+ transportation-related programs across Minnesota State's colleges and universities to prepare the next generation of transportation workforce. I'm here today to speak about the importance of preparing Minnesota's workforce for emerging transportation technologies, including autonomous vehicles. Autonomous and automated transportation systems are no longer theoretical. I think we know that around the country and around the world. Companies are deploying these vehicles and technologies, logistics, ride-hailing, agriculture, aviation, and advanced mobility systems. These technologies rely on a workforce that understands software, sensors, AI systems, cybersecurity, and advanced diagnostics. Minnesota has a strong opportunity to lead in this space, but leadership requires both innovation and workforce readiness. As these systems continue to develop, it will be important that Minnesota has a workforce capable of understanding, maintaining, validating the safe operation of these technologies. For education and workforce development, this matters. When new technologies enter transportation, they reshape the types of skills technicians, operators, engineers, and analysts must possess. Just as electrification is changing automotive programs today, autonomy will require new competencies in areas like sensor calibration, machine learning-enabled diagnostics, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication, remote fleet monitoring and logistics operations, and cybersecurity and safety validation. Across Minnesota, our institutions are already training automotive and collision technicians, diesel technicians, aviation mechanics, pilots, and logistics professionals. But with emerging technologies, they require us to evolve those programs so that graduates are prepared for the vehicles and mobility systems of the future. In fact, many of these emerging technologies and jobs that we see and that will be coming in the future don't necessarily require a 4-year degree, but instead rely on advanced training in vehicle technology software systems with certifications and 2-year degree programs across the state.
I'm going to need you to wrap up real quick, Mr. Haig.
Okay, just emerging technologies should not be viewed as only a regulatorily challenge, but also a workforce opportunity. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so very much for your testimony. Next, we've got Dan Dwight. After Dan is Joe Harrington, and then Joan Wilshire. Dan, would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan Dwight with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. As you all know, the Chamber represents about 6,300 employers around the state, employing more than 500,000 people. The Chamber supports House File 3513. Thank you, Representative Koznick, Representative Cagle, and the other co-authors for bringing this bill forward. This is a very important thing for us to do for Minnesota. It's good for the state. Autonomous vehicles will, attract a lot of people to come to Minnesota in terms of business development and business investment. Additionally, it's attractive for people who want to come here for conventions and tourism and things like that. It really will help us keep competitive with other states. As we heard from previous testimony, Waymo is now in 10 other cities. They're expanding, they're growing. It would be really, really great to have them here in Minnesota. Additionally, this will further connect people to goods and services. It provides another option for transportation for folks to get from point A to point B in a very direct manner. The Chamber has been closely following the work of the Governor's Council on Connected and Automated Vehicles since 2019. It's something we've had a particular interest in and look forward to the conversations that will happen after this. I understand that there's a little bit of work to be done, but I encourage you guys to pass this bill today, move it on to committee, the next committee, and let's keep working on it. I will say that this legislation does, meet the overarching goals stated by the council. It establishes a clear path for AVs to operate in Minnesota. It creates a regulatory framework that's workable for both the operators and for state regulators, and it will help promote innovation while ensuring safety. One thing that I will note is I do think the preemption element in this bill is important. It's critical to not have a patchwork of regulation, from city to city, to ensure that there's a smooth operation for rides and companies to operate in Minnesota. And then I'll just go on to state just finally that, the track record of these autonomous vehicles, the safety is really good. We heard some particular facts and figures, and I just want to highlight that. So in closing, I urge you to support this bill today. I really look forward to working on this as it moves through the committee process, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dwight. Next, we have Joe Harrington, then Joan Wilshire, then we have Corb O'Connor. Mr. Harrington, would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Good afternoon. My name is Joe Harrington, and I'm the policy manager at Our Streets. We serve around 25,000 core supporters and many more in communities where we organize across the state. I'm here today to voice our opposition to House File 3513 and the broader testing and deployment of connected and autonomous vehicles in Minnesota. Our concerns center in a few key areas: transit, safety, labor, and local control. Our transportation system is a tool for economic opportunity for the people it connects, the workers that it employs, and in communities where better investments like right-sizing roads, transit, and active transportation build shared prosperity. Despite vague promises of new jobs, autonomous vehicles pose an immediate threat to rideshare drivers and transit operators and a longer-term risk for those in the trucking industry. If public policy enables automation that reduces local employment, it contradicts our commitment to Minnesota jobs and community wealth building. We share the concerns for mobility for those who don't drive and agree with the testimony shared today on the isolation from opportunity and daily life that car-oriented systems like ours do for people who don't drive. The problems created by driving and diving headfirst into a new technology in the 20th century, cars, without thinking about the implications of those on people across our state. To solve this problem, we're supportive of transit statewide, as well as other things like active transportation, and connected and autonomous vehicles undercut that progress towards building that system for the future, which is not affordable for transit-dependent riders and doesn't replace fixed route transit. We really support everyone's commitment to safety, but companies like Waymo present the removal of a driver as the obvious solution to safety, but those are theoretical gains that doesn't actually address the fundamental problem, which is a system, too many cars, regardless of who drives them, moving too fast on streets that are not designed to keep people safe and designed for speed. We really do think that those effective solutions already exist, like safe street design, lower speeds, protective infrastructure. Allowing fully automated vehicles on Minnesota roads is premature, especially when we haven't yet built a system that keeps everyone safe. And I know we just talked on Monday about a 9-year-old kid who was killed in Moorhead while biking in a crosswalk, should have been going to the state fair, but instead was killed on our system. We have to really focus on that safety. And finally, we're really concerned about stripping local control from governments to regulate and charge fees for these operations. Such fees could support projects like improving safety and transit at the local level. We respectfully urge the committee to reject House File 3513, consider a broader conversation on with the public for connected and automated vehicles, and continue to support policies that strengthen public transit, protect workers, advance fiscal responsibility, reduce highway impacts, and keep transportation governance accountable to the people of Minnesota. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Joan Wilshire, then we have John Hauschladen, then we have Corb O'Connor next, and then John Hauschladen. Joan Wilshire, would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Joan Wilshire, and I'm currently a member of the Minnesota Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities. And I'm also speaking from the perspective as a former executive director of the Minnesota Council on Disability. Transportation for people with disabilities using wheelchairs and scooters has literally not changed in over 30 years. We are still using the typical paratransit system, using Metro Mobility, where you call in 4 days and hopefully you get a ride that eventually shows up and picks you up. But the good news is, we are now looking at some autonomous vehicles coming into the system. But we've got to make sure we do this system correctly from the get-go. That is my big concern here. As we're moving forward here, I want to be really clear about what is really needed to ensure good, accessible transportation for all. And that is, we need to be looking at the transportation entities that are coming in to do business in the state of Minnesota here that are going to be transporting individuals to and from locations. We need to ensure that they've got vehicles that are fully wheelchair accessible. We can't allow transportation entities to come in the state with 0 accessible vehicles. That means they're basically going to be discriminating against close to 15% of the population that would need vehicle services with wheelchair accessibility and so forth. So definitely one of the things that my suggestion would be, besides stating they've got to have at least 2 wheelchair accessible vans in their fleet at all times, that would be a safety net for being able to transport individuals. By not making this clear up front in the beginning of the creation of this new transportation service, again, as I said, we'll be discriminating against thousands of people with disabilities in the state. And another incentive that could be looked at here as well is when you're looking at down the road of surcharges, those companies that have existing wheelchair accessible vehicles could possibly not be charged those surcharges and fees as well. So again, I just wanted to be clear that we do the right thing from the beginning, that we put these specific items in place so that we can ensure everyone has the same equal access to be able to get this good transportation.
Thank you so very much. Next, we have Corb O'Connor, then we have John Hauschladen, then we have Greg Tved. Mr. O'Connor, if you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Corb O'Connor, and I'm the elected president of the 106-year-old National Federation of the Blind of Minnesota. A couple years ago in San Francisco, I wanted to try a legendary chicken sandwich. So I used the Waymo app using my iPhone's built-in accessibility mode, followed turn-by-turn walking directions to the car, tapped the button on the app to honk the horn so that I could find that vehicle, and rode across the city independently. No driver, no discrimination, and no discussion, just dinner. But when I arrived at The Bird, the only way to order this chicken sandwich was through a touchscreen kiosk that didn't talk or work with my phone. There were no staff at the counter, just folks in the back making great sandwiches. So I had to ask the customer behind me to order my sandwich. In 15 minutes, I experienced 2 approaches to technology: a driverless car that worked better than the common kiosk. For 9 years, we've worked with Waymo and others to make autonomous vehicles usable by blind travelers. The lesson is simple. Accessibility isn't a detour. It's good design. We need legal and regulatory certainty that all other providers entering our market will likewise build accessible tools the blind can use, and as just stated, that access for wheelchair users. The most cited concern among the blind Minnesotans is access to transportation, more than doctor's appointments and groceries. Autonomous vehicles move us closer to a barrier-free avenue to employment, tourism, and education. We value the service of all rideshare companies, and we know that autonomous vehicles increase supply in the market. That's why we support HF 3513. However, we urge you to strengthen it so companies operating autonomous vehicles in Minnesota will provide apps and in-car interfaces that are usable by blind and low vision folks. We've worked with the industry partners on this simple sentence that accomplishes this, and we respectfully ask the committee to add it. Let's open the roads to those without driver's licenses through accessible autonomous vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Connor. Next, we have John Hauschladen, then Craig Tvet, and then CJ Linder. Mr. Hauschladen, would you please state your name for the record and continue with your testimony?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm John Hauschladen, president of the Minnesota Trucking Association, and I did serve on the inaugural Connected and Automated Vehicles Task Force for the Department of Transportation, keenly personally and professionally interested. House File 3513 represents groundbreaking legislation. It literally establishes the rules of the road for automated passenger and commercial motor vehicles. Getting this policy right is critical, as it will dramatically impact both highway safety and the economy of Minnesota. The Minnesota Trucking Association supports the testing and deployment of level 1 to 5 automated vehicle technologies for all vehicles. I think we differ from some of the presenters in that we support a phased-in approach with pilots and testing rather than wide open deployment as proposed in this bill. We believe all vehicles, both passenger cars and commercial motor vehicles, should require human operators until safety is demonstrated. And we believe safety can be demonstrated in at least two ways. One would be data through the pilots, and two, by data provided by the automated vehicle manufacturers detailing safe performance while operating under similar weather conditions in other states. And I think I may be the first testifier to talk about that dynamic, that Minnesota is different than Phoenix, so we better make sure it works in Detroit Lakes or International Falls. We support policies that allow for optional adoption rather than mandating specific technologies. Safe performance is the filter through which all technology should be judged and approved. And as an industry that crosses boundaries, we believe Minnesota policy should be consistent with national standards and policies so that we don't have changes not only in towns or townships, but across states. And finally, and I think most challenging and troubling about this legislation for us is its silence regarding liability when crashes occur. Truck insurance costs have skyrocketed in recent years due to frivolous lawsuits and what we call nuclear jury verdicts. Many insurance carriers have simply left the trucking market. So we must ensure that Minnesota automated vehicle policy does not accelerate trends that threaten trucking companies and the fragile supply chains they serve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. That was actually really close to 2 minutes. Well done. Moving to, we have Greg Tvet, CJ Linder, and Juan Morales. Mr. Tvet, would you please state your name for the record and continue with your testimony?
Greg Tweet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you for having me today. I'm a proud retired member of union and a union steward for Teamster Local 120. I drove a bus for Metro Mobility for 11 years, transporting Minnesotans with disabilities, seniors, veterans, and individuals with mobility or medical needs to medical appointments, work, school, or daily activities. I do this job. I hold a Class B commercial license. I'm professionally trained, held to a high safety standard, and was responsible for the well-being of every passenger on my route. Our passengers rely on hands-on care. I secure wheelchairs, assist with mobility devices, ensure proper restraints, monitor for medical distress, and respond in emergencies or severe weather. I made real-life safety decisions every day. House File 3513 would allow autonomous vehicles to operate without a human driver once authorized by the commissioner. While Waymo is the focus of this bill, it would also allow full autonomous driverless buses, trucks, and snowplows to operate on our roads. This is not safe. Every day when I was driving, I had to experience human judgment and make split-second decisions to keep my passengers and human vehicles safe. Sometimes driving to our roads is unpredictable. Other drivers cut you off all the time. Pedestrians and bicyclists don't always behave the way you predict they will. Construction zones and emergency vehicles sometimes require taking an alternate route that I wasn't planned on taking. Once crews were done trimming the trees on that block, I took the back alley to drop that customer off. This is not just for innovation, It is about safety and dignity. I urge you to slow down, strengthen this policy, and expect the unexpected, and ensure safety for workers
Thank you so
that
very
are left
much.
behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have CJ Linder, then we have Juan Morales, then we have Abdullahi Abshir. CJ, would you please state your name for the record and continue with your testimony?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, members. My name is CJ Linder. I'm the Education and Policy Manager for the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. Bike MN works statewide to make it easier and safer for people to walk, bike, and roll in daily life. We believe transportation is a fundamental right and is essential to be a full participant in society. And the ability to participate fully should not be dependent on driving. It's essential that our transportation system provide equitable access for people, no matter where they wish to travel or what mode they are using. Something that is important not only in this conversation, but arguably for everything this committee discusses, is that 30% of Minnesotans do not drive for a variety of reasons, and our transportation system needs to work for all of us. Our current system has prioritized car drivers above all other modes, and of the $8 billion we spend each year for transportation in our state, including state, county, and municipal systems, around 95% of that is spent on cars. So that's the context and the paradigm the Transportation Committee is working with. Learning from the past and looking ahead to the future, we do see lots of potential for improvements in making the system work better, improving access for all Minnesotans, reducing costs and gaining efficiencies, and making our streets and highways safer for everybody traveling on and along them. Bike MN understands that technology is already being used and will continue to be incorporated into transportation systems to assist human operators and ultimately may be able to completely take over driving responsibilities. We see potential for driver automation that won't be susceptible to distraction, intoxication, speeding, or road rage, to name just a few issues that human drivers might experience. Automated driving systems can support people who can't or don't drive and can serve areas where public transit is not practical. At the same time, we've identified numerous concerns, including some that others have spoken about already today, such as impacts on labor, prioritizing single occupancy vehicles, undercutting transit, potential environmental impacts, and concerns around equitable access that will need to be addressed to ensure this technology actually makes our transportation system work better, not worse. Our top concern is for the safety of those outside of autonomous vehicles. To be clear, we recognize that human drivers already are far from perfect, and traffic violence in the U.S. costs nearly 40,000 lives per year. We heard from Chair Koznick a moment ago about those stats for Minnesota. That's the appropriate baseline for comparison. While autonomous driving platforms claim they can outperform human drivers, recent reporting last month from Fortune magazine found that Tesla's self-driving robo-taxis in Austin, Texas, caused approximately 4 to 8 times more crashes per mile driven than a human driver. So we're not yet convinced that technology is ready to share our roads in Minnesota with human drivers. We look forward to continuing to work with the legislature, with DOT, DPS, commercial operators, including Waymo and other partners, to address these concerns, maximize the potential benefits of technology in our transportation system.
Thank you
protect people who walk by.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Linder. Next, we have Juan Morales, then Abdullahi Abshir, and Eid Ali will be third. Please state your name for the record and continue with your testimony.
Hi, everybody. My name is Juan Morales. I have been rideshare driver for 3 years, and I am part of the SEIU Local 26 rideshare driver organization community. I started driving Uber and Lyft after my restaurant shut down because the COVID. This way, the job that made more sense for me to pay my bills. Every day I help people who need support, maybe the walkers with the wheelchair to sure they can get into the car. We have to move the seat sometimes for the people into the car. Sometimes the people I drive from the bar, they fall asleep and I have to wake them up, and sometimes they feel confused, but that's the way we help people. And sometimes if they have any health issues, so we can help them to do CPR or something like that, something the robots can do it for them. So the cameras into the car, they don't help. They're gonna call maybe 911, but every second, every minute counts to save a life. Just because the big tech companies want to something doesn't mean they should be able to do whatever they want. And this bill says that they like to just let them to do whatever they want again. And additional to
all those another concern, the rideshare drivers already strongly with those pay and lack of the benefits for the Waymo is allowed to count will be hurt even more. They will mean we will like to able to pay all those bills, the mortgage, hunting, Minnesota family. I want you to just put in my shoes. Would like to be okay if someone, the companies come to our state to wanted to free pass to try out this new product without any process if you mean to weren't able to pay our bills. We are here today because we need to slow this thing down. Please take the time needed to do this right. Don't let them destroy our life. Please vote no.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Mr.
very much for
Marines.
everything.
We have, please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Abdullahi Abshir, and I've been rideshare driver for close to 3 years. I'm here as part of SEIU, Local 26 rideshare driver organizing committee. I started doing rideshare work because I had previously done temporary and seasonal jobs, and I wanted to have something full-time, something that I can do full-time. As a driver, I have a lot of encounters with different people. I had a passenger once who were very drunk, and she put wrong home address in the app. And when we got to her destination, she said it was the wrong house. I helped her by calling someone for her and finding her a way home. Something Waymo wouldn't do that, you know. I've picked up elderly people who are getting their groceries, and I help them get those groceries into their home. Waymo wouldn't do that, you know. I had a recent passenger who got into my car looking sad, and I asked her what's going on, and she said she had a bad experience with a customer at her job. I was able to help her deal with the bad situation by making her day better and just talking to her and listening to her issues. Something Waymo wouldn't do. I think we all could use some more time with the real people and less time with technology and internet. Having human drivers is not just more safe, it's good for our community. We know there's a chance of software and technology issues with these cars. This would be a risk, and they could have a malfunctions or they could be hacked. That would be dangerous for our roads, especially during harsh weather we see here in Minnesota. A human driver don't have those risks and know our roads. I like being an independent driver and do good work. This is my job. If we see Waymo coming, would be very devastating for me. I'm already working so hard and in a saturated market, and driverless cars wouldn't even rest, you know? If you rush this without a plan, and people like me won't be able to pay our bills. Please vote no.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ali, would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Eid Ali, and I represent MOLDA. It's an organization that advocates for the drivers. We work closely with rideshare drivers across Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on HF 3513 regarding autonomous vehicles. We welcome innovations that strengthens our community and improves transportation. However, innovation must move forward responsibly. Minnesota is a cold and snowy state. Our winter conditions create unique road safety challenge. Before expanding autonomous vehicles operations, we should require independent Minnesota-specific research to ensure these vehicles can operate safely in our climate. Public safety must come first. Equally important is the employment impact. Rideshare drivers, numbering in the tens of thousands, are small business operators. Many come from minority communities and communities of color who are already economically vulnerable. Many have recently experienced significant financial hardship, particularly during and after recent immigration enforcement operation that reduced their income. We must carefully consider how autonomous vehicles expansion could lead to job displacement and deepen economic inequality. I respectfully urge this committee to ensure that all stakeholders, drivers, public safety experts, and community leaders are included in this conversation. Let's move forward thoughtfully and not rush into decisions that could be difficult to reverse. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That was 1:43, so you were the best one yet with time. We're going to move on to the amendments. If there's a testifier, I have no more on the list. If you wish to testify, I need you to talk to one of the pages and get on a list and let us know. Otherwise, we're moving straight to the amendments. Here we go. This is a good one. This is going to be fast. Here we go. Representative Kraft, the A1 amendment is yours. Would you like to move it?
I move the A1.
All right, that is moved. Would you please explain it?
Yeah, so, this is, the discussion that the first person from Southwest Transit had on this, I think was a great example of why this amendment is important. Waymo, or autonomous vehicles, will really impact our overall transportation or transit system in very interesting and unique ways. And we have seen, there's data that shows that where these have operated has increased congestion in areas and have pulled people off of transit. So this is just saying, look, as an extension to transit, the last mile, or in conjunction with how we view the overall transit system, that this asks that these autonomous vehicles providers perform under an agreement with transportation service that complements regular route transit or paratransit service.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Representative Kraft. I don't mind exploring the idea, and I appreciate the discussion around the amendment and how I think it is an important discussion and connection with current transit services. Kind of see it differently with what Southwest Transit is doing and what many of the testifiers have spoken to, how this does augment current transit systems, but it also ignores private use of autonomous vehicle rides, just like an Uber or Lyft works kind of with transit systems, but it is more broadly and available in areas where there isn't the high density. In your community, it probably have a lot more regular route service than in some of other members' communities like mine or other members. So we'll continue to have discussion as we are moving this bill forward, but at this point, I would recommend a no.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. No. The motion does not pass. The amendment is not adopted. We move on to the A2. Representative Kraft moves the A2. Representative Tapke is asking for a roll call on this amendment. Representative Kraft, would you please discuss your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Koznick. So this amendment ties into some of the discussion I just had about the prior amendment, where we need to understand really carefully how these systems, how these autonomous vehicle systems impact our congestion, impact our transit system. And so the second part of this, the reporting part about vehicle miles traveled, really understanding the impact that will have. So that's part of it. And the other piece is, with such a new technology, we should really have a really clear understanding of reporting and how it's functioning. So that's where the first part of the reporting section is, and then the second part is really about really understanding the impact on transit and vehicle miles traveled.
Mr. Chair, response?
Thank you. Again, I think this is a worthy discussion. What we heard from testifiers and we've seen in other parts of the country in terms of incident reporting, the millions of miles that have already been driven should give us a lot of comfort, because we've seen in other areas and we have been studying it a lot already. The vehicle miles traveled data is something we can discuss. I think that there's concerns from other private businesses, whether they're autonomous vehicles or any other business or transit service. about the vehicle miles traveled. We often see buses driving down the street and back and forth with no riders on it. So I'm not sure that that's actually productive data. So we'll continue to work on this as well and see if there's discussion or something that we can do with the reporting. I don't know that that's necessary, but today I'll suggest a no vote.
We have 10 more amendments. 30 seconds, please, Representative Kraft.
Well, I think we should have data on how it works in Minnesota. I appreciate things outside Minnesota, but I think we should have data how it works in Minnesota. So I don't see what the harm is of gathering this kind of information, so I would urge a yes vote.
Representative Cagle, can you go quick, please?
Well, I think this is a super important conversation, and there's lots of technical pieces in this bill that I don't think we're going to be able to cover in 15 minutes. But I think, you know, one of the things I had conversations with the Waymo folks, and I think, you know, what we would like is just to see some kind of good faith effort and that there will be negotiations and conversations. And so, you know, I would really hope that at least some of these amendments could be adopted in a good faith effort, that we will continue to work on this. I know it's coming to my committee next. And so I would really, you know, hope that we can look at this as a holistic approach and how it's going to affect our entire community, you know, the jobs in our community, but we can't also stand in the way of progress. And so, you know, I think this is really worth a conversation and really digging in and talking about this. And so I'm hoping that, you know, we would be able to possibly lay the bill over and come back and have more discussion on this, because it is so tight on time. There's so many amendments. It's very technical. There's lots of transportation things in this bill that would not be addressed in the Commerce Committee. And so, yeah, I would hope that we can get some of these amendments adopted and continue to work together. As this process is supposed to go. We're supposed to, you know, work on these amendments through committee, not speed through the process, but really deliberate on these bills. And so, you know.
Perfect, thank you.
Running these like auctions is not going to be very
Mr.
good
Chair, are you
public
open to
policy.
meeting tonight? Are you open to meeting tonight? Chair Tapke said that he's open to meeting tonight.
If that'd be fine with me, I guess I'd want to set the committee reset, as I've said previously, and last week when we introduced that this would be heard today, that I do want, you know, this is new policy, so I to a certain extent, I agree with Chair Cagle. We do want to move it to the next committee, but you just got to recognize the reality here. We're a tied legislature, and so one of the benefits, unfortunately or fortunately, but one of the benefits is that we're not going to send anything to the floor that doesn't have votes to get it done and an agreement. So under different circumstances, if there was one party in control completely, that would prohibit the ability to have more balanced discussion. And so I'm recognizing the balance of the legislature, that we want to have more members in other committees, Chair Cagle's Commerce Committee, local government, the public safety. And so we want to have more members have the opportunity to look at those specific areas, but also recognize that we will continue to do the work in this committee as the bill will circle back to transportation, and as an author, recognize the work that was done with these amendments and try to figure out if there's ways that we can do that. But as for today, I'm still recommending a no vote. You know, the reporting thing, isn't that big of a deal, other than it's just more regulation. But the miles traveled data, I think needs a little bit more work than what we have here today.
Perfect, Mr. Chair. We can go a little bit later. We're also going to have Joe work on getting this evening set aside for extra committee work. Representative Sensormir, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just Chair Koznick, thank you for walking through what the path of the committee is. I know that myself and many of my colleagues are really concerned about some of the labor components, so I would like to make a motion to refer this to the Labor Committee as well, and I ask for a roll call vote on that.
So the motion's currently to make it to go to Commerce. After that, we can have that discussion. Future purposes for this is going to be necessary. It has to go to local government, has to go to a lot of different committees. So I think that making a new motion to send it to Commerce, or from Commerce now to straight to Labor may not be the appropriate place to put it on the train tracks. Mr. Chair, what do you think?
Mr. Chair, we can't have a motion within a motion. So once we do the A2 amendment and vote on that, then that motion is well within order, in my opinion, and needs to be voted on at that point.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, so
Sounds
having a
great.
vote on the current amendment and then
Excellent. Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, this is the roll call vote. Yep, we'll take the roll.
Chair Koznick.
No.
Chair Tapke.
aye.
Vice Chair Myers. Vice Chair Ream.
Aye.
Representative Anderson.
No.
Representative Fogelman.
No.
Representative Green.
Yay.
Representative Jones. Representative Joy.
No.
Representative Cagle.
Yes.
Representative Kraft.
Aye.
Representative Lugar Nicolai.
Aye.
Representative Murphy.
No.
Representative Olson.
No.
Representative Sensor Mira.
Aye.
Representative Scrabo.
No.
There being 7 ayes and 8 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Now on to the motion to re-refer the bill to the Labor Committee. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will withdraw that motion. I have gotten an informal agreement from Chair Koznick that the bill is going to Labor. So
Wonderful.
Yeah, and
Love
I would
that.
just say, Mr. Chair and Representative, thank you for that. I didn't specifically call out labor. There are components, and I think that's very exciting. You know, maybe we look at it a little bit differently. I just didn't name every committee that it may need to stop at, and that's not my intention to circumvent any of the other committees.
Perfect. Representative Sensor Mira has withdrawn the motion. We move on. The A3 amendment has been withdrawn. We move to the A4 amendment. Representative Lugar Nicolai moves the amendment, and would you please introduce the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The A4 is an amendment that would require individuals, if they're operating a vehicle either remotely or in the vehicle itself, to be certified as a driver or have a driver's license from the United States. This just ensures that they are certified as being familiar with our traveling restrictions and obligations.
Mr. Chair.
I would need to look at that a little bit more. Just got the amendments yesterday, so there's possibility that there's some work to do in that. I'm not sure. I think we need a little bit more information of how the operating system works and the support system works. Obviously, whoever is in support should understand the requirements of Minnesota and take a look at whether it's a CDL license or what class of license I think needs to be looked at a little bit later. So at this point, I would recommend a no vote, but happy to continue exploring that.
Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any way we could get Waymo to come up and explain to us how that works?
Mr. Chair.
I think because we can certainly, had another thought there for a second. Just wanted to comment that while there's Waymo's here in the room, we also heard from May Mobility, and there are a number of other automated vehicle companies. So that this bill and this policy, just want to re-clarify, is not for any one particular company, but happy to have testimony on that, how that works. But just wanted to make sure that members and that public knows that this is setting kind of groundbreaking policy and exploring groundbreaking policy statewide for any autonomous vehicle driver, transit provider, or business.
Did the please state your name again for the record and begin your answer to the question.
Hi there, Adam Lane with Waymo. I think we're open to having the discussion. We agree with the intent of the amendment language, but I think there's some specifics around it that we'd like to work on. Just want to be very clear, When we're talking about remote operators, that is different than remote assistance. Remote assistance folks, which we have, are individuals who provide context to our driving. Our cars are fully self-driving, fully autonomous. All the decision-making power in our compute is on board the vehicles. In certain situations where vehicles might get in a certain situation where they need a question answered, they will ask a remote assistance provider to provide some context, usually in the form of a multiple choice question. In that case, the remote assistance individual will provide a response, and then it is still the vehicle's decision to either accept or reject that. So when we're talking specifically about remote operators, someone who's able to physically force the vehicle to make a decision, we are happy to talk about an amendment related to that.
Quick follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just kind of looking at this, and so dynamic driving task, what does that encompass?
Dynamic driving task is going to be what you expect as a human of being able to complete a ride, turning, steering, braking, everything that is involved in the driving behavior. We do not have remote operators who are able to control that. We only have remote assistance staff who are able to provide context so the vehicle can complete its dynamic driving task.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
The noes have it. The motion is not accepted, will not be adopted. Now, members, I have been instructed that the A5 amendment has been withdrawn, so we move to the A6 amendment. There is a roll call requested by Chair Tabke, and the bill is moved by Representative Lugar Nicolai. If she would please introduce her bill, or her amendment.
Amendment. Got it. Thanks, Mr. Chair. This amendment just ensures that the scope of this is limited to vehicles that are transporting passengers and not goods. As I understand it, the safety stats related to these vehicles do not pertain to, for example, stopping a fully loaded 18-wheeler on Minnesota roads in the winter. And so I think as long as we're thinking about this as right-sized to the information that we have, this would be limiting it to that scope.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, representative members. I'm going to, no surprise, suggest a no vote, but I think because it's a little broad on the amendment, there are, part of the excitement and promise of autonomous vehicles, there are other companies that aren't providing riders. There are no seats for anybody to sit in. This is in Michigan, I believe. But they have, are working with like CVS or Domino's, and the vehicle goes there, picks up an order, and brings it back to whoever's ordering it, creating actual job opportunities, but still operating under similar systems. And so I think maybe we could explore it if you're, if there's more caution about, 18-wheelers and semis, we could work to refine that. But so at this point, knowing that there's other good commercial applications that I think we can talk through, as I just mentioned, I think that's, let's look at that and maybe refine the intent of the amendment a little bit, if I understand your intent. And so at this point, Representative, I'd suggest a no vote.
Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to suggest that maybe we look at size or weight limits on that stuff. But I think, again, we're hoping that we can get some kind of, signal that we will work on this. And so I think if we could adopt this goods and then work on it, maybe to see if it is something we can do based on size or weight. So I would hope that we can get this through.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Baker will take the roll.
Chair Koznick.
No.
Chair Tabke. Vice Chair Myers. Vice Chair Ream.
Aye.
Representative Anderson. Representative Fogelman.
No.
Representative Green.
Aye.
Representative Joy. Representative Cagle.
Yes.
Representative Kraft.
Aye.
Representative Lugar Nicolai.
Aye.
Representative Murphy.
No.
Representative Olson.
No.
Representative Sensor Mira. Representative Scrava.
No.
There being 7 ayes and 8 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. All right, we move on to the A7 amendment. It is moved by Representative Ream. Representative, would you please introduce your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The A7 amendment would require that the on-demand autonomous vehicle network provides a wheelchair-accessible transportation network vehicle. And I'm thinking this is a pretty friendly amendment.
Mr. Chair
Chair.
and committee, I like the testimony that I heard from a variety of the disability community and the suggestion of like 1 or 2 vehicles within a fleet. But I also at the same time don't want to hamper the technology from being here. And I'm looking at the amendment, Representative Ream. I don't know that I think we could do a little work on it with some of the things that were discussed. So right now I want to incentivize companies to provide accessible rides. And so I want to make sure that we do that correctly. We talked about it at the MnDOT's task force quite extensively. One of the things last week, I took some time to go to Southwest Transit and was encouraged. They have May Mobility doing Toyota Siennas where the back door opens and they can have a wheelchair accessible there and then the seats fold up, which is different than what I've seen in some of the other companies. So before I accept this, I like where you're going, but I'm going to ask for a no vote today. But as we prepare and to try to finally pass the bill, I think this is an important component. And I would encourage and be a partner to work on this to get it to be more workable without halting investment in Minnesota with other rides that, you know, want to make sure it works for the advocates as well.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A7 amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I just have, seeing that we have only 2 minutes left in the committee hearing today, we have what I think are extremely important, very good amendments that I wish were getting on the bill. I'm pretty frustrated that with this whole list of things that, I'll step back just a second. I very much believe that there are very good, important future uses for autonomous vehicles and where this goes in the state of Minnesota. I also believe that before we go in that direction, we have to have an intermediate step. And we have to have a step in there that isn't just going from 0 to 60 in one fell swoop, that we are working on a series of safeguards, a series of reporting, a series of protecting and making sure that workers are protected and making sure that we know how this is going to work moving forward. And we should have the ability as a committee in the Transportation Committee to discuss and move these things forward. And so I appreciate everything, all the testimony and all the things that have been going on here today. We do have more amendments that I think are really, really important that as we go forward must be considered on things. And so I would respectfully request, Chair Koznick, that that we lay this bill over for today and we sit down as a crew and we work on getting a path forward with this really important technology and things figured out as we move forward. So I make a motion that we lay this bill over for continuing to work on it and that we can work together on finding a path forward. Since we haven't been able to accept any amendments, and I think everyone can agree that this is not ready in its whole as it is today to move forward on things. So I just request that we take a moment and we can come back on my time in the future, we can come back on your time in the future, whatever, but it's something that we need to continue working on. And I don't think this does service to the issue. And so I would like to request that we lay this over for more work.
Chair Tapke has moved to lay this bill over. Mr. Chair, how do you respond?
I would like to pass the bill for the insurance portion to get discussed to the Commerce Committee. Other than that, I think Chair Tapke and I agree on using a lot more of the remaining committee time, even in the shortened session, to work on this policy and do it here, a lot of the transportation issues here in this committee. So I will not be supporting that motion, but would make the motion for commerce after that.
All right, all those in favor of moving the bill or laying the bill over, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to laying it over, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
There being a tie, the nay happens and it is not laid over. There is now a motion to send it straight to commerce with none of these amendments being addressed. All those in favor of,
I'm going to ask for a roll call on that.
I would request a roll call as well.
all right, roll call has been requested. Mr. Baker will take the roll.
Chair Koznick.
Koznick votes aye.
Chair Tapke.
No.
Vice Chair Myers. Vice Chair Ream.
No.
Representative Anderson.
Aye.
Representative Fogelman. Representative Green.
No.
Representative Joy.
Joy.
Representative Cagle.
Pass.
Representative Kraft.
No.
Representative Lugar Nicolai.
No.
Representative Murphy.
Aye.
Representative Olson.
Aye.
Representative Sensier Mira.
No.
Representative Scrava.
Aye.
Representative Cagle.
There being 8 ayes and 6 nays, but because of the power sharing agreement, since no DFL member voted in favor, we cannot move the bill to the next committee. It does not prevail. Mr. Chair, we now have to figure our time out.
I'm sorry.
We have run out of time, Mr. Chair. Are we coming back tonight?
Members, I guess I would just, I do appreciate the discussion and the amendments, the process being what it is what it is. I still have a commitment to work these things out as I started the committee hearing. This is a work in progress. This is kind of new legislation and new statutes of law. So I just closed that, the widespread adoption of autonomous vehicle technology presents unique opportunities to drastically enhance road safety, better transportation options for elderly and disabled individuals, reduce traffic, and improve air quality while creating vast economic gains and improving efficiency in a lot of industries and jobs. And so we'll continue to work on this. It's unfortunate we didn't pass it to the next committee, but we'll keep working, and I appreciate the comments from the committee members, and we'll try to incorporate and refine the bill as best we can.
Chair Tapke, final words.
Thank you, Chair Orsland. I concur with everything that Chair Koznick just said and look forward to continue to work on this. So thank you, everyone.
With that, the bill is laid over, and our next meeting will be Monday, March 9th at 1 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.